order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The prayer today will be offered by the wonderful chair of the Health Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
This is an Irish blessing for all of us on crossover. May the road rise up to meet you, since ramps and curb cuts are law. Don't be ashamed for your advocacy. May your strength of character inspire all. People underestimating you is heavy, and people can be so unkind. May you find your peace in knowing that your spirit they cannot bind. In a world that sometimes won't see the struggles that you face, may your light shine so bright that the obstacles, lobbyists, and constituents grant you grace. With courage and conviction, we come together for inclusion loud and clear. Every story in this chamber matters deeply. Every heart deserves to cheer. So here's to you, dear friends, today, with hopes that soar and rise. May you be seen and respected, your bills pass third reader, and in this life be bold and wise.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Waiting for people to come from the back. Okay. The clerk will call the roll. There being 129 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 10th, 2026.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the journal.
So order petitions, memorials, and other papers. Okay, thank you. Message from the Senate, consent calendar number 24, Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the first bill in committee assignments.
Senate Bill 159, Senator A. Washington, Health.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
So much be considered the reading of Senate Bill 159, be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
Hearing no objection, the bills are read the first time and referred to the appropriate committees. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 members present, the House is still in session. All right, here we go. House third reading calendar number 108. The clerk will read the Minority Leader. May I help you?
Just a
Oh,
question
you're
on-
waiting for the bill? Let me
Oh,
read
yeah.
it out so then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can ask the question.
House Bill 159, Mail Theft.
House Bill number 159 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a floor
Floor
leader.
Leader.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. So does this encourage mail theft or prohibit it?
This would prohibit mail.
Prohibit it. Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right, so. Okay, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
On the bill that prohibits it. All right. Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 159, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 412,
Thank you.
Child Support, Suspension of Driver's Licenses.
House Bill number 4 12 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 412, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 582, Prince George's County Alcoholic Beverages Licenses Voter Registration Requirement.
House Bill number 582 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change
Can I
their
explain my
vote?
vote, Madam Speaker?
Yes, recognizing the lady from Hartford County.
I just want to remind the body that I had stood up before and asked questions about what this bill did to the great subcommittee chair, and she explained to us that what this bill actually does is it stops the connection of voter registration requirements for getting licenses. It doesn't require it, it does the opposite, it fixes it. So I just wanted to make sure everybody that's in the red hue up there knew that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The reason why I'm voting red on this, I can only think of a couple reasons why you would want to remove the voter registration requirement. I guess two of them is it's either you're a non-citizen or the chamber just suddenly got anti-voter registration, which I know the latter is probably never going to happen. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the call. There being 119 votes in the affirmative and 12 votes in the negative, House Bill number 582, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 912, Local Government Trap, Neuter, Return Policies for Community Cats, Requirements and Restrictions, Ashes Law.
House Bill 912 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 912, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 914, Worcester County Board of License Commissioners Membership.
House Bill 914 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 914, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1218, Safe and Healthy Homes for All Act.
House Bill 1218 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I'm going to rise and explain my red vote on this bill. There's a lot to this bill that I think is laudable, and certainly we want to have safe and healthy homes for all. There is a part of this bill, though, that we had a good discussion in committee about, and that I will forever not understand why it's there, and it's the registry that by December of 2027, where properties that are failing this standard actually get listed publicly on the governor's website. And let me just say this. There are 100 different ways to gain compliance from property owners who have conditions that aren't quite what they're supposed to be. One of the things I would hope that this legislature would never do, unless there is a court of competent jurisdiction that's found you guilty of a certain thing for which you then have a public record for, that we should just be naming names of private businesses and properties. And when you read the bill further and understand generally what this is trying to do, this bill is not doing that. It's not putting these property owners in a court of competent jurisdiction. It's rather saying that an administrative finding will then lead that your property is going to be listed, and you might not even know why it's happening. So with that in mind, a bill that seems well-intentioned, that I would agree on much of what's there, the fact that we're naming names without there being a good and substantial reason to do so leads me to a red vote.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm going to
You're
explain
welcome.
why I hope my colleagues will join me in a green vote on this bill. First of all, I just want to make clear, this bill requires the ACD to create a plan. So nothing is going into action. They're literally creating a plan to address issues where there's properties where they have egregious issues around complaints. Think about things like excessive rodents. Think about things like falling pieces of structure inside the home, inside the properties, etc. Only applies to properties that have 50 or more units. So we're talking about large buildings and properties where there's extensive issues with the building. But I want to make it clear, the reason of why they're identifying these individual properties is that in publishing this information can spread awareness of the problem and help create solutions. So if individuals know where the situations are, we can come together and figure out more solutions on how to address these properties and these issues. And I'll ask my colleagues to please vote green on this bill. It'll help keep more Marylanders safe and ensure that Marylanders have access to safe and clean, proper housing they deserve.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative and 36 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1218, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Vote change, recognizing the delegate from Baltimore County.
Yes, HB 582 to green, please.
The other gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 412 and 159, I wanted to make sure I was in the green.
The other gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 582 to red, please.
Any other vote changes? Seeing none, we're doing House third reading, calendar number 109. The clerk will be so kind and read the first bill, please.
House Bill 525, County Boards of Education, Student Electronic Communication Device Use Policy Establishment, Maryland Phone Free Schools Act.
House Bill 525 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote?
Yes.
Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
I'm not going to make a practice of this. I didn't get a chance to ask my question. Let me just say that I worry that the enforcement part of this, like I'm going to vote for the bill, but I'm wondering how this actually plays out in practice. So with that being said, perhaps there's some further explaining of votes that'll help me understand better where that comes from.
Recognizing the floor leader.
The gentleman seems to want me to explain my vote.
He does.
So I will accommodate. The answer to the question the other day, which helps me to decide to vote yes, by the way, since I'm explaining my vote, is that this would be handled like any other disciplinary thing. If a student had a magazine out that was disrupting instruction or a fidget spinner that was disrupting instruction, the teacher could try to take it away from them. Now, if they don't, it becomes a whole other procedure where the administration gets involved and other things like that. But it wouldn't be substantially different from that sort of thing where something is disrupting instruction in the classroom. And that's why I'm voting for the bill.
All right. The clerk will call the roll. There being 135 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative, House Bill number 525, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 558, Prince George's County Alcoholic Beverages Wine Festival Licenses.
House Bill number 558 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 558, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 846, Property Tax, City of Hagerstown and the Hagerstown Multi-Use Sports and Events Facility Incorporated, exemption.
House Bill number 846 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? Oh, sorry. If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative and 7 votes in the negative, House Bill number 846, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The
Madam
clerk-
Speaker, our
Yes.
system is funky again. It's just frozen.
Okay, we'll just
Oh.
give it a, is it up now?
No, it's not. No,
Okay,
it's not.
we'll give it a second. All right, we'll wait for it to come up. Thanks for letting us know. All right, ready to go? Okay. So House Bill 874 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Oh, should I say the clerk will call the, okay, the clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 874, Anne Arundel County Board of the License Commissioners, alterations.
See, I got you this time. You got me over the weekend. All right, so House Bill number 874. Is there any debate? It's on third reading for final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 874, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1483, clinical professional counseling and social work, out-of-state providers, use of telehealth for continuity of care.
House Bill number 1483 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the delegate from Hartford County.
Thank you so much. Could the floor leader
You're
just
welcome.
answer a quick question about this bill?
The floor leader,
Yeah.
the vice chair of the committee.
Hi, thank
Good
you.
afternoon.
So I'm just wondering, is this going to allow our social workers here to maintain continuity of care when we travel? Is that part of the bill?
You mean that when the social worker travels, or when?
No. So if let's say I saw a licensed clinical social worker here, but I was out of town in West Virginia or Florida, could I still maintain my care, or is this just for people from other states to maintain their care when they travel into our state?
This is just for other people who are traveling and actually coming to live in Maryland, basically.
Oh, so
Yeah.
wow. So it would allow them to maintain out of state
For 6 months.
for just 6 months.
Just 6
okay.
months.
Okay. There's a limit on it. Okay.
Right.
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better. Is there no way for us to do that for for us as well? Because this has been a problem for one of my kids. Whenever he travels, he can't go to therapy. It's kind of silly.
Yeah. That would be up to other states' legislatures.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
For the question.
Okay. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1483, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will be so kind and read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1504, highways, sidewalks, and bicycle pathways, construction and reconstruction, the Honorable Ann Healy Pedestrian Safety Act of 2026.
House Bill number 1504 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1504, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Any vote changes? Recognizing the vice chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've got to get better at the transition from standing to voting. I'd like to vote yay on 1483, please.
Anyone else? And congratulations, Delegate You're very deserving, very deserving. House Third Reading Calendar number 110. The clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 664, Cecil County Alcoholic Beverages, Alteration of License Quota.
House Bill number 664 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative, House Bill number 664, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 837, Education, Student Athletic Activities, Cardiovascular Pre-Screening.
House Bill number 837 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Will the floor leader rise for a question?
Floor leader? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hale and Hardy to you, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Just for clarification, it looks like a lot of the bill was struck. Looks like there was some significant work done. So could you just let us know where we are now, what posture it's in?
As we are tremendously fiscally responsible, the reporting would have cost a great deal of money. So we decided to take the reporting out. The original intent of the bill was to create an extra level of screening for students who might have a heart condition and warn people that that was true. All the bill really does is have a group, in this case it would probably be the American Heart Association, provide a list of screening questions that a physician will use to give an extra screening so they can warn the student and their parents, or if the student is major, just the student.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Happy to help.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative and 2 votes in the negative, House Bill number 837, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will be so kind and read the next bill, please.
House Bill 925, Sewage Sludge, Per, and Polyfluoroalkyl Substances Regulation.
House Bill number 925, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce it. It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
You've inspired me. Polyfluoroalkyl. I've wanted to say that all session.
Go ahead. Good for you.
Thank you. So I wanted to stand briefly to explain my red vote today. And PFAS, this is one subject matter I've really enjoyed learning a lot on my new committee assignment this year. I appreciate the intention of the bill, but I wanted to take a couple minutes and talk about how I see it. So I didn't know this, but I did know this part. We take this sewage sludge from a lot of our wastewater treatment plants, and we're talking a lot, probably thousands of tons of matter per year. And there are significant levels of PFAS in this sludge. And one of the main ways we handle this is we apply it to the farms in which we grow our food. And what this bill, it sets limits about what the levels are of PFAS that could be in this fertilizer that we applied to our food generating farms. But as was said in the hearing, quote, most Maryland systems are already below the bill's limits. And these limits are 25 times or more higher than the limits of PFAS that are set federally. So what we're doing is, by passing this bill, we're not actually tightening the system, in my opinion. We're not actually tightening the way that we statutorily control how we apply what is essentially contaminated, fertilized substances to the farms in which grow food. And there is no liability here. And the way I see this is that we're leaving the liability to the farmers. If you look at the committee testimony and all the parties that supported this bill, a lot of these, and I'll say most of these folks, are the industry players which are operating the systems, either the government systems or the industry partners, that are applying this contaminated substance to farms for a profit. And the bill does not actually require us to limit that in any significant way. During the subcommittee, I appreciated a vigorous discussion where I offered a liability amendment just to say if someone does get sick because they've been harmed, and this does happen, this has happened, if their health is harmed because they've consumed a food that was infected with PFAS, or an animal has eaten food on the farm and they've eaten the animal and they've become sick because of that, that these players would be liable for that. And I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to do. Earlier today, we passed a bill, or we're going to pass a bill, where we hold industry partners liable that might have chemicals in certain cosmetic products. So I think that's the right way to handle it. And for the record, we measure this PFAS at our wastewater treatment plants, I believe, once a month. So I don't believe we're actually monitoring how this is passing through our infrastructure on to farms that will grow food for consumption. And I think the right way to do this is to ensure that there is liability for industry partners who use this product. So for that reason, I'll be a no today.
Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the delegates' comments and strong feelings about the importance of restricting what is really a toxic chemical. This bill, without this bill, there would be no limits on the concentration of PFAS that can be applied on farms. This does set an upper limit, and for wastewater treatment plants that have lower limits but still substantial concentration of PFAS, there are fairly strict rules about what they have to do to get it down even further. And MDE will monitor compliance by these wastewater treatment plants with their plans for reducing the concentration of PFAS. And I guess two other points. There's nothing that would prevent us in the future from further ratcheting down the eligible concentration of PFAS, just like someone, I forget who, mentioned that we have done that with respect to lead over the years. And again, without this bill, there will be no limits, and wastewater treatment plants would have no responsibility for reducing the concentration of PFAS in their sewage sludge. And when it comes to liability or responsibility, there's nothing in this bill that would prevent someone from filing a civil suit. If they believe that they have been sickened by the application of PFAS on a farm or some other land, they can still bring someone to court. There's nothing that prevents that. So for all these reasons, I urge a green vote for this bill.
Recognizing the delegate from the Eastern Shore.
Mr. Subcommittee Chairman, may I speak? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
I was on the committee, and I felt a little, I was in a quandary whether I would get up and speak, but I've dug into this bill because, as my fellow colleague that sits in front of me, I had some very strong concerns about it. But as I looked into it as a farmer, it sets regulation for parts per million that we don't have today. That's a benefit to the farmer. As I looked into it, there's really no alternative that we can use this sludge for without putting it on ag land. Only other use would be a landfill, and they're filling up fast enough. There was concern about food. There's a 3-year moratorium on the land that this is applied to, where direct consumer production of food cannot happen. And that is enforced by MDA, and I think MDE may get a copy of that agreement. They cannot grow fruits or vegetables or any direct consumption of soybeans or anything else that goes direct to the consumer for 3 years after the application of this sludge. And I will be voting green on the bill because it's another one of these bills that we've heard this year where nobody's happy. Nobody got all they wanted. But they've worked 9 months on this bill to get a consensus of the group that was interested in trying to come to a consensus. And I support that 9 months of hard work, and I'll be agreeing on this bill.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative and 7 votes in the negative, House Bill 925, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1370, Town of Rising Sun Stop Sign Monitoring Systems, Authorization of Pilot Program.
House Bill 1370 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 109 votes in the affirmative and 26 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1370, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will be so kind and read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1400, Shellfish Aquaculture Penalties, Suspension or Revocation of Permit or Registration Card.
House Bill number 1400 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1400, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1463, Anne Arundel County Board of Education Constituent Services Liaison Establishment.
House Bill number 1463 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will take the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1463, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Any vote changes? Recognizing the gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yea to nay on House Bill 582.
Anyone else for a vote change? Recognizing the delegate from Montgomery.
1463 to yea.
The gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On House Bill 1372, yea, please.
The gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
1372 nay.
Anyone else? All right, we're going on to House third reading calendar number 111. The clerk would read the bill.
House Bill 512, Anne Arundel County Board of License Commissioners and Part-Time Inspectors Compensation.
House Bill 512 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 512, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 649, Advancing Equal Educational Opportunities for All Students in Maryland.
House Bill number 649 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the delegate from Hartford County.
Thank you so much, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
Could the floor leader just talk to us a little bit about what this bill does?
Floor leader.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The chair of the committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this bill authorizes the Maryland Commission on Civil Rights to enforce prohibitions against discrimination in educational institutions. It supplements existing prohibitions on discrimination, specifically noting that currently only existing state prohibitions are limited to elementary and secondary schools, and this allows, which leaves our students in higher education without similar protections. And so that's what the bill does.
Okay, and does this include both public and non-public?
It includes higher education
All of them, okay.
institutions, correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative and 35 votes in the negative, House Bill number 649, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 661, General Provisions, Commemorative Months, Muslim American Heritage and Jewish American Heritage Months.
House Bill number 661 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative and 7 votes in the negative, House Bill number 661, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1506, Condominiums and Homeowners Associations, New Owner Fees, Limitations.
House Bill number 1506 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1506, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will be so kind and read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1520, Courts, Exemption from Judgment, Alterations and Additions.
House Bill number 1520 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1520, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1625, Public Health Newborn Screening Program, Fees and Core Conditions.
House Bill number 1625 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 123 votes in the affirmative and 12 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1625, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Vote change. Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Yes, HB 582, read.
Anyone else for a vote change? All right. House third reading, calendar number 112. The clerk will read the bill, please.
House Bill 497, Family Law, Temporary and Final Protective Orders, Duration.
House Bill number 497 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the lady from Hartford County.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I rise today, y'all, to sadly not vote for this bill, not because I don't like it, but because another bill that already passed, unfortunately, in conjunction with this bill, will lead to folks having their firearms removed for, instead of 7 days without being in front of a judge or even knowing what was going on, but for now 14 days. So had that other bill not passed, I would be a proud green vote on this, but domestic violence victims sometimes have very savvy abusers who will misuse this, and they will be sitting ducks now, not just for 7 days without their firearms, because they will lawfully turn them over, unlike the abusers, but now for 14 days, the abuser will have a time frame to hurt or kill their victims without their victims being armed. So I'll be read on this today.
House Bill number 497. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative and 37 votes in the negative, House Bill number 497, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 999, Alcoholic Beverages Class 9 Limited Distillery License Alteration.
House Bill number 999 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative, House Bill number 999, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1067, Hunting Lead and Lead-Based Ammunition Phase Out.
House Bill number 1067 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm going to vote red on this bill. I tried to put an amendment on that was a reasonable request to have good faith warning when you come across this sort of violation. I just don't know how you're going to figure out whether there's lead shot in a shotgun shell. I don't know how you're going to allow Natural Resources Police to promulgate regulation that's going to allow reasonable enforcement under this bill. And more importantly, most importantly, I don't know how this really helps the environment, which I believe is the admitted goal of this piece of legislation. So for all those reasons, I'm going to be voting no on this bill. There are 100 different ways to deal with an issue like this if you truly believe we need to get away from lead ammunition. The first and foremost being you probably should try to work with the companies that sell ammunition and try to work through it like that. But to penalize those that are holding it just seems unworkable to me. Maybe there's a political aim here that we're trying to get at, but how you make this a workable bill is beyond me. So with that, a red vote.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And there has been a lot of debate on this particular bill over the last few days, but you know what there is no debate on in the scientific world? Lead poisoning. Lead poisoning, we know, has been in historical records for thousands of years, but by the 1970s, the scientific community had absolutely determined, without any doubt at all, that lead poisoning was so dangerous for our children, for their brain development, for their bones, and particularly for pregnant women, that we started banning it. We started banning it as a nation in many, many different types of products. First, remember the Get the Lead Out campaigns in the 70s and 80s? That was gasoline. We banned it in gasoline. We banned it in lead paint. We banned it in toys. We banned it in so many other manufactured products. And even this body, a few years ago, banned it in playground surfacing. And only 2 days ago, I'm sorry, I can wait.
Can we please listen?
2 days ago, we all unanimously voted, every single person on this floor voted, to protect infant formulas and baby food from toxic metals, including lead. So there was no disagreement. There was no debate on the problems with lead poisoning then. In 1991, the Bush administration determined that there was great danger to wildlife and to our waterways from, yes, lead and lead ammunition in particular. And so they were on the right side of history when they banned lead ammunition in waterfowl. This was in 1991, and guess what, guys? All of these same arguments were made then, and the sky did not fall, right? And yes, there was a mention the other day of California. Do we want to be like California? I would say in this instance we do. Because in 2008, California started banning lead ammunition because it was recognized that it was impacting waterways and waterfowl there. They were finding that animals were not only dying of lead poisoning when they had been shot but not died from being shot, but they were also dying of lead poisoning when they ate and consumed other animals that had been shot with lead. Again, there is no debate on the scientific merit of this bill. And I will also say that since California has banned lead ammunition for all species in 2019, hunting has not disappeared in the state. As a matter of fact, hunters have increased by 10% in the state of California. So hunting has increased, and the only thing that has gone down is lead poisoning. So please, people, this is not, there's no political motive to this. As a developmental psychologist, I brought this bill because we know that lead poisoning is bad for our environment, our wildlife, our waterways, and most importantly, our children. So please be on the right side of history with me and vote green on this bill. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I spoke a bit about this before. So Frederick County has the most deer hunting in the state, 6,889 according to the DNR website. But I also want to address a point that was raised about awareness of these new regulations. It was brought up that, oh, they'll figure it out when they're getting their license. Well, in Maryland, like many states, you don't actually have to get a license to hunt on your own property, nor do next of kin, nor do grandkids. So what you're going to have, like in my county, is you're going to have thousands and thousands of people that are going to get caught up in this regulatory scheme and that are going to have a whopping up to $750 fine for first offense. You know, it was a very reasonable amendment that we brought up before that was offered by my good friend from the Eastern Shore to make the first offense a warning. It was another reasonable amendment, in my opinion, just my opinion, that we would exempt deer for just the sheer volume that people that hunt for their livelihood. And I don't disagree with you that there may be some issues with lead, but this is extreme. This is extreme. This is a ban with a high fine for mostly poor people, quite frankly. And so that's what we're getting at. We're not saying lead is good. We're just saying let's be reasonable about it. You know, just like too much sun exposure is not good, but we're not going to ban people from going outside, right? So that's what we're getting at, is reasonableness. And to me, this is an unusually unreasonable piece of legislation that will mostly impact my people. So for those reasons, I'll be voting red. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Anne Arundel, I saw first.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So while we banned lead, of course, in waterfowl, 90% of waterfowl hunting is done over the Chesapeake Bay. Those are common use waters. That's understandable. But this bill also encompasses small game such as squirrel. And based on the comments that were just made, it's a great illustration for the folks at home that step 2 of this legislation, whether this legislation is phased in over 5 years or not, is irrelevant. We meet every year. Step 2 of this type of legislation will be to ban even target ammunition. So for all those reasons, including the fines, including the deer damage that's done in this state, up to $60 million in deer damage, according to the Farm Bureau, tens of millions of dollars, according to DNR reports, I'll be red on the bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman to my left from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm going to be green on this bill for a number of reasons, most of which my esteemed Vice Chair just said. You know, we took lead out of our paint, we took it out of our gasoline, and it's time to take it out of the food that we eat when we hunt. I'll also note that I am not concerned about the enforcement provisions on this, or why DNR can tell the ammo, because DNR has been enforcing the waterfowl provision since 1991. So for all those reasons and many more, Madam Speaker, I will be green on this bill.
Recognizing the delegate from Hartford County, then the Eastern Shore.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I just want to note for the record that in California, which is the only state who has done this, that law passed in 2019. Bruin, however, was after that. And because this is an outright ban on all lead ammunition, I feel like there is a very good chance that this is going to be yet another Maryland gun law that's going to be enjoined and found unconstitutional under Bruin. So for all of those reasons and the fact that I am just as tired as many others on the floor of asking Attorney General Brown to defend laws that are unconstitutional in the state of Maryland at taxpayer expense. I will be a deep red on this bill.
Recognizing the delegate from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I don't know whether or not the folks who've stood up already, or whether or not if you're going to vote green or red on this bill, if you're a hunter or you're not a hunter. My guess is that most of the hunters are people who represent a large majority of the hunters in the state of Maryland are probably going to vote red on this bill. And folks who probably don't hunt are going to vote green. And so on behalf of the folks in the rural parts of Maryland, where the majority of our hunters are, we thank you for being concerned about our health, first of all. Second of all, I want to say this, that practically speaking, I don't think banning lead in projectiles and shotgun shells is going to lower any rate of lead poisoning. My guess is the reason why it's much lower now than it was, say, 10, 20 years ago is because we banned lead paint. What happened is you paint around windows, and any real estate agent don't tell you because there's a mandatory disclosure when you buy a house about lead paint, is that kids were eating lead paint. They were eating chips of paint that had lead in it. Once they banned the use of that, and they mandated that if you rent a property, you have to get rid of all that lead paint and paint with latex paint, that's when lead paint poisoning went down. So, and practically speaking, this isn't going to do anything for that. This is, again, it's just a mandate, from a majority part of the state, the Baltimore, D.C. area on a mandate in the rural areas. This is all this is. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to clarify. The gentleman from the Eastern Shore asked, I think, the most poignant question. He said, how is this going to be implemented? And I'd remind the body that this is actually a crime of possession. If you're hunting and you have the correct ammo in your firearm, but you have what would be otherwise considered ammunition in violation in your pocket, in your book bag, that is still an offense. So I think the way this applies is really punitive. I'll remind the body that the Department of Natural Resources does use citation quotas, so they have a real incentive to, really go after folks with this. And I just don't think it's structured well, and I think our hunters will be really harmed by it, so I'll be a no today.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County and explaining his vote.
Thank you. I'm voting red on this, and one of the things, I actually talked to an expert that does a lot of hunting, and that's my son-in-law. He said one of the things that we have to look at is if they use copper, those shells have a tendency of ricocheting. So that's why I'm voting red, for safety. Thank you.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore City.
I rise to explain my yes vote. Reference was made to our laws regarding gun control, gun safety being struck down by the courts. Most recently, the Fourth Circuit upheld Maryland's most recent gun law because the Supreme Court decision should be read narrowly and not expansively. I vote green.
Recognizing the delegate from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, to explain my vote. And to my good friend, the Vice Chair of the committee, I'm not persuaded. The only point I brought up in this entire bill is how is it going to be enforced? What are the regulations going to look like? And all I can say is that I can tell when a bill's not ready for prime time, when we put a bill in to ban something, and then we leave it to the department to adopt regulations to carry it out. We could do better.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess it's only 4:38, so we're not in prime time yet, so I'm happy to have a lot of people explain the votes so we can get there. This bill is ready for prime time. It's been introduced for a number of years. We had a hunter from Baltimore County, from the majority party, introduced it previously and spoke about the bill. The bill is well developed. We got excellent input from many hunters, some who agree with you, some who don't, many other public health experts and others who think this is a good idea. Again, we have an existing policy at the federal level, so this is already happening, right? The thing you think is so hard to implement is the law today, as was discussed by the gentleman from Anne Arundel County talking about the Bay. So this bill is ready for prime time, even though it's only 4:39. Thank you.
The clerk will take the call. There being 91 votes in the affirmative and 42 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1067, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1097, Public High School Sports Injury Record Keeping and Reporting Requirements.
House Bill number 1097 is on third reading and final passage.
Speaker.
1 second.
Sorry.
Is there any debate? Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you. Just a quick
You're
question for the floor leader before the vote.
Floor leader. Yes, recognizing the gentleman to my left from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Good day.
Thank you. Good day. I just want to make sure, is this just for concussions and serious injuries, or is this every injury, every high school athlete, every high school across the country? I mean the state, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It is. So it's every injury, even regardless of severity of the injury.
Asked and answered. Yes.
Wow. Okay. Do you have any idea how much that costs?
Doesn't cost much because it's going to be sort of a checkoff form that you keep.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering before I vote.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the lady from Hartford County.
Thank you so much, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
Could the floor leader tell us, I saw
Floor
in here
leader.
there was an info from the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association where they raised some concerns about their ability to actually implement this because most schools don't have a certified trainer on staff. Was any of that addressed? I looked through the reprint and it didn't look like you changed a lot in the reprint. Were there concerns about ability to actually implement addressed at all?
Happy to help you with that.
Thanks.
There's a list of people that can fill out this form: a referee, a coach, an athletic trainer, or even school personnel.
Okay, but those folks don't have any medical training, so how will they be able to accurately report on a medical injury when they don't have medical training?
If you look at the list, you'll see that it's pretty things that are pretty easy to discern. In fact, we struck one thing that we thought perhaps they couldn't do. The one thing was a date on which the injured student would be authorized to return to the activity. We weren't sure they would be able to do that. The rest are mostly check boxes, whether the injury occurred during practice, whether it was removed from the sport or not, whether a medical evaluation was provided on site, and the role of the individual documenting the injury, who they are. Those are all things that can be reported as factual.
Okay, so is there a diagnosis that's required to
Nope.
be posted?
Nope.
So no type of injury needs to be reported. It's just broadly a child was injured.
Right. The idea is to gather information on what sorts of injuries are occurring, report them to the State Department, let them take a look and see if they feel like they need to do any regulations or just take a look at injuries in general. And it doesn't have to be generally on injuries. It could be on a particular sport, whatever the State Department feels like is appropriate once they get this data.
Okay, so you did say, though, that it's taking a look at what types of injuries are occurring. Is that not, so either there is types being recorded or it's just broadly injury? I'm just trying to make sure which one that
The bill
is.
says a general description of the injury, including the body part affected.
Okay, I see that. Okay, I see that on line 5 on page 2.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, I'm not totally, so the issues that they raised about the difficulty weren't directly addressed in the amendments?
Well, I think they were actually. I think we took out the thing that we're most concerned about. We even added in that when they get advice on this, a group that the athletic trainers can be part of the evaluations of the data.
Right. Well, their concern was that most schools don't have athletic trainers at all.
Again,
so,
the bill doesn't require it to be an athletic trainer.
yes, I see that. Although that was the issue that they were worried about, that only an athletic trainer would be properly educated to be able to do this. But I do appreciate you.
Just as it
answering
hasn't
all
been
my
read
questions.
completely here, they probably didn't notice that there were other ones when they wrote that as well. They write a lot of stuff, and I don't blame them, but there's a lot of other people that can report on this injury.
Okay, I appreciate you answering all my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 109 votes in the affirmative and 27 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1097, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1111, alcoholic beverages, Class 3 wineries and Class 4 limited wineries, bulk wine.
House Bill 1111 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1111, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. I was trying to do what you do. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1474, Baltimore County Alcoholic Beverages Licenses, Transfers, and Conversions.
House Bill number 1474 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1474, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Any vote changes?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change HB 582 to red.
Recognizing the gentleman from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 999 to green. Thank you.
Recognizing the gentleman to my right from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 1625 to nay.
Now to my left from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 582 to red.
Anyone else for vote changes? Recognizing the minority whip.
999 to green. Thank you.
All right. That's it? No one else? All right. We're doing now the report of the Committee on Judiciary. It is report number 31. Will the clerk please read the bill?
House Bill 336, Criminal Procedure, District Court Commissioners, and False Statements. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be the reading of the amendments, Madam
So
Speaker.
order.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 creates a new procedure for the issuance of summons or arrest warrants based on an application for the statement of charges filed by an individual who is not a police officer or a state's attorney, and adds reporting requirements. Amendment number 3 restores current law relating to the crime of making a false statement to the government. Please move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I move to suspend the rules to allow immediate consideration. I'm sorry. I would like to withdraw that motion, please.
Okay. Thank you. Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader yield briefly, please?
Floor leader.
Yes, sir.
I remember this bill. Can you explain what it does as amended?
So what the bill does as amended, currently a commissioner can issue a warrant for arrest. This bill would remove the commissioner's ability to issue a warrant for arrest. That commissioner can make a recommendation, can send it to the state's attorney for review. The state's attorney could then request a warrant for arrest. Okay. Or it could go before a judge, and a judge could turn a summons into a warrant for arrest.
How long would it take to go to a judge? Would that be available any day?
That would be available any day, except for if the court is not in session.
Okay, so I had one of these situations in my district. It was a crime against a person. It was harassment. Why would we remove that for those type of situations?
We're removing it really for a couple of reasons. One is when we had the hearing, we heard from a number of witnesses who claims were made. Those claims ended up being false claims. They were arrested, and then their cases were either nolprost or dismissed. So we were weighing the challenges faced by a number of individuals who were being arrested and their lives were being impacted when really they shouldn't have been.
As you know, these are used a lot for domestic disputes, crimes against people. Was it not considered to leave those crimes in?
It was considered, but we looked at it and we said there were a couple of options that an individual who was facing particularly domestic violence They still can go to a police station and report the crime, or call and have the police come if there is a crime committed. Police can then arrest without a warrant, or the police could request a warrant through the commissioner.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Mr. Fuller, please don't sit. I have a
Roll
question
leader.
for you, sir. No. I just want you to get down. And, no. Just a point of clarification, because I'm confused. I heard you say any day, but then it seemed like it's maybe not any day, like on the weekends, evenings, and on holidays. What happens in those circumstances? So I'm just trying to understand in those instances what occurs.
So once again, anyone has an option. The police are always an option if there is a crime that's been committed. And so that option does not change.
Okay, so the police are an option. Are there any other options on
Yes,
those days?
they can always get a summons.
Okay.
So I can go to a commissioner and file a complaint, and that commissioner, if they determine probable cause, can issue a summons.
Okay.
And that individual would have to come to court based on that summons.
Okay, thank you for that.
Seeing no other questions, the bill is order printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 members present, the House is still in session. House third reading calendar number 113. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 470, Digital Asset and Blockchain Technology Task Force establishment.
House Bill number 470 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative and 7 votes in the negative, House Bill number 470, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. So clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 493, Judgeships, Circuit Court and District Court.
House Bill number 493 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 493, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1037, Public Service Commission Broadband and Voice over Internet Protocol Service Study.
House Bill 1037 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 104 votes in the affirmative and 33 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1037, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1056, General Provisions, Commemorative Days, Purple Lights Night.
House Bill number 1056 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1056, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1059, State Department of Education, Asian American History, Accurate Instruction.
House Bill number 1059 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative and 3 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1059, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1508, State Highways, Highway Work Permits, notice.
House Bill number 1508 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative and 9 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1508, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Vote changes, recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
1037
welcome.
to yay, please.
Recognizing the gentleman from Hartford County.
1508 to yes, please. Thank you.
Any other vote changes?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the lady from Baltimore County.
1508 to yes, please.
Recognizing the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 582 to read.
Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
1097 to green and 1625 to red.
Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
1097 to green. Thank you.
Recognizing the gentleman from Western Maryland.
1508 to yes.
Prince George's County.
1067 to green.
Hartford County.
1508 to green.
Southern Maryland.
1059 to red, thanks.
Anne Arundel.
1508 to green, please.
Montgomery.
1508 to green, please.
Anyone else? Any other vote changes? All right. This was a good practice for me to learn the counties. Oh, I'm missing one. Hartford County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
1508 to green.
Wonderful. Anyone else? Oh,
Sure, why not?
Southern Maryland.
1508 to green. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. House third reading, calendar number 114. The clerk will read the bill, please.
House Bill 406, Prince George's County, alcoholic beverages, multiple licenses, prohibition, exemptions.
House Bill number 406 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 406, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
Over here, I'm sorry.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore
My
County.
button didn't work on that last bill. I'd like to be recorded in the green, please.
All right, make sure to have your little yellow slip. Anyone else? All right. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 421, Prince George's County Speed Monitoring Systems, Maryland Route 210.
House Bill number 421, which the Chair of Economic Matters just high-fived someone, is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 96 votes in the affirmative and 35 votes in the negative, House Bill number 421, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1034, Child Care, Child Abuse and Neglect Training Requirements.
House Bill number 1034 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1034, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1135, Health Occupations Pharmacist Vaccination Orders.
House Bill number 1135 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I
You're welcome.
ask the floor leader for a question or two before I vote on the bill, just to clarify?
Floor
Thank you.
leader?
Sure. Thank you, Madam
Does
Speaker.
Thank
the
you.
bill mandate anyone to get a vaccination?
No.
Doesn't mandate children or adults to get a vaccination?
No.
I don't like that, and the bill doesn't do that, right?
It does not do that.
Okay. And does it allow individuals or parents of minor children to make their own choice as to whether or not they want a pharmacist to administer a licensed vaccine or not?
Absolutely. It just provides them that option.
So if a parent says, hey, I don't think the pharmacist is appropriate to administer the vaccine, they can go through their pediatrician or whatever other format they used.
That's absolutely correct.
If I, as an individual, say I'm having a hard time getting into the doctor to get a flu shot, I can get the flu shot at a licensed pharmacy.
That is correct.
Is that pretty much all it does? I want to make sure it doesn't mandate any vaccines or force people to get their vaccines through a third-party pharmacist.
Nope, that is absolutely correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 112 votes in the affirmative and 23 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1135, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1150, Health Occupations, Pharmacist, Minor Conditions in HIV Prevention and Treatment, Rapid Testing and Preventative Care Act.
House Bill number 1150 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the lady from Harford County.
Thank you so much, Madam
You're welcome.
Speaker. I'm just speed reading through this, and I'm just a little curious what exactly we're doing with this bill. It looks like we're going to allow pharmacists to do strep testing now. Is that, could the floor leader?
Floor leader,
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
recognizing the floor leader to my left.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So thank you for your question, Delegate. Let me just provide a summary of what this bill does as amended. And
Let's
so-
listen. Thank
Okay.
you.
As amended, the bill authorizes a pharmacist to order a test for, screen for, and treat for certain minor conditions in accordance with the statewide written protocol established by the Maryland Board of Pharmacy. And so, and it also repeals the non-occupational post-exposure prophylaxis, or NPEP, standing order program, and instead authorizes the Maryland Department of Health to establish a statewide written protocol for the delivery of pre-exposure and post-exposure prophylaxis medications for the prevention and treatment of HIV.
Okay, that does help. But so I'm looking on page 5 of the reprint, the very top, and it says the pharmacist could delegate the administrative and technical tasks of performing these tests to a pharmacy tech. So are we going to be having pharmacy techs testing for strep?
So again, it is just the administrative and technical tasks.
So could you tell me what the difference is between the administrative and technical tasks and the actual test? I'm just worried because strep is, I would not call that a non-serious condition. Strep, especially in children, can be deadly if it's not caught and treated properly. So I'm a little bit concerned with outsourcing. We've done a lot of things over the years on policy in Maryland that have kind of gotten folks out of their pediatricians' offices and into pharmacies. And to me, I'm a little worried that this is taking us even farther down that path, and strep is actually a very serious illness.
Well, in fact, Delegate, I would agree, right, that it is a serious illness, and we think about places across our state where there is limited access to a doctor. And so it's important that from a healthcare access point of view, that for those that need to be tested and screened for minor conditions such as that, and in the bill, as I would say, that the subcommittee was able to actually scale it down. And so Group A Streptococcus pharyngitis is included, influenza, COVID-19, and other respiratory illnesses and conditions. And so from where it was previously introduced to where it is now, this still allows for pharmacists to test for and to treat these types of conditions when we think about the importance of making sure that our constituents have access to health care and to be treated.
Thank you for that. Madam Speaker, I do see that there's been some work on this bill, but just for the body, for those who aren't reading it right now, they took out cold sores, lice, skin conditions like ringworm, and UTIs. Those were considered like not appropriate for a pharmacy tech to be involved with the testing of, but they left strep in there. Strep is, I understand for influenza and COVID-19, I'm certainly less concerned about those athlete's foot, that's fine. Strep is a very serious illness in children. And it also includes not only a registered pharmacy tech, but also a registered pharmacy intern. I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable with the move that we've been making in Maryland just over the last 10 years or so that has really made it incentivized folks not to go to their doctors, especially with little children. So I'll be a red on this bill. I think it's still too loosely drafted. If strep wasn't on here, I might feel differently about it. But as a child that had chronic strep, it's a serious condition and it requires real medical treatment, and it's worth the 20-minute drive to an urgent care.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative and 36 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1150, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Vote changes. The gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 1135 to red.
The gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Madam Speaker, HB 1097 to green.
The gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
1097 to green, thank you.
The lady from Baltimore County.
1059 to red, please.
The lady from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. HB 406, HB 421, and HB 1034 to yay, please.
The gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
1059 to red, please.
The gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. HB
You're welcome.
1625 to red.
Any other vote changes?
Madam
The
Speaker.
lady from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
HB 1034 to green, please.
Anyone else? Remember to turn in your yellow slips. House third reading calendar number 115. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 130, Task Force to Study Deed Fraud.
House Bill number 130 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative and 6 votes in the negative, House Bill number 130, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 191, Consumer Protection, Retail Transactions for Essential Consumer Goods, Cash Payments.
House Bill 191 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 104 votes in the affirmative and 32 votes in the negative, House Bill number 191, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1203, Garrett County Alcoholic Beverages Act of 2026.
House Bill number 1203 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1203, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1219, Climate Change, Homeowners Insurance, and Emergency Management Study.
House Bill number 1219 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the lady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam
You're welcome.
Speaker. Could the floor leader rise and tell us what the fiscal note on this is?
Floor leader.
$100,000.
I find it interesting, and I hope Vicki Gruber's
to.
listening, because the fiscal note actually says, and you may have amended it, but I found it interesting, higher education expenditures increase by as much as, and written out in words, as much as a couple $100,000. So the fiscal notes used to be easy for us to look at because we look for numbers, not words. So you're telling me it's not, quote, a couple $100,000, it's...
No, the money's coming out of CEF, and it is up to $100,000. So we capped it, so it can't go more than that.
And you're taking the money out of CEF, which is a tax on energy generator.
You know, that's up to you to determine how you want to determine that. I'm not going to get into it with you. It's CEF money. It's $100,000 coming out of CEF money. That's it. And just so you know, since you opened the door, are you aware of what this study is about?
I'm sorry.
No?
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Please repeat
I
it.
said, are you aware what this study is for? Do you understand what this study does?
It says emergency management climate change study.
Okay. So the bill does two things. Okay. It studies FEMA's lack of response in Western Maryland. Remember that big flood we had last year in Garrett and Allegheny County? FEMA refused to have any reimbursements to the state of Maryland. So state taxpayers had to put in to help make that community as whole as possible because the Trump administration refused to help that community. So what it studies is what are we going to do in the future, because the Trump administration has made it very clear that they are not going to be pursuing the use of FEMA in the future. As a matter of fact, they're talking about removing FEMA from the entire country. So if you look at what FEMA does, they help in disasters. So what this does is it says, hey, if the federal government under this administration isn't going to do what they're supposed to do to help people in the time of disasters, help states and help communities in the time of disasters, then what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with these disasters that are coming? So the first part of the bill basically says we need to study what our reaction is going to be. How are we as a state, how are we as local communities going to prepare for the fact that the federal administration is not helping? They've already demonstrated they're not helping, and they're not going to help. So that's the first part of the bill.
So are you, as part of this, going to encourage the Democrats in Washington, D.C. to fund the program that they're refusing to fund right now to reopen FEMA?
I'm not in
never mind.
Congress.
Go ahead.
I'm a Maryland state delegate. So
well, this
I'm a Maryland state delegate. I don't go down to Capitol Hill. I'm not in Congress, so I'm not talking about that.
Well, you did just spend 5 minutes talking about Donald Trump and what they're doing. So go ahead.
I talked about what they're not doing. What they're not doing.
Okay,
which
thank
is their
you.
job to help the community. The second part of the bill, if you'd like me to explain, I can explain the second part.
Go for it.
The second part of the bill, as you know, with these torrential downpours and the very violent changes of weather patterns, it says, you know, we're really concerned that insurance companies who are paying really large amounts of damages to people's homes. And it says, what can we do to look at that? Because we're very concerned from an insurance perspective that some of these insurance companies, especially on the flooding side, may just pick up and leave the state of Maryland. We're also concerned because the premiums are going up very, very quickly. Why are the premiums going up? Well, we already know, in part while those premiums are going up.
Sorry,
I mean, you said it, not me, so I'm going to agree with you. You're absolutely right. Absolutely. You said
I knew it. Donald Trump's making your health insurance
So
go.
the second part of
homeowners insurance.
the second piece of this delegate is what it says is, okay, what can MIA and the Maryland Insurance Administration and MDEM look at to address, to ensure that we don't get into a position where we can't have insurance for the folks in the state of Maryland? What do we do? Because we don't want them to pull out because the costs are going really high. So what it says is, like, let's look at this in an objective, holistic way and go, okay, so if there's a hailstorm that comes by and does $25,000 worth of damage to your roof, and the insurance company pays out $25,000 for you to get a new roof because there was hail damage, or there was water damage, or whatever the disaster may have been that caused for that claim and that premium, what it says is, you know what? After the roofers pull out of your driveway, and then, I don't know, a couple hours, a couple weeks, or a couple months later, we get another hailstorm that does $25,000 worth of damage to your roof. Why don't we look at this in a holistic way and say, okay, what can we do to build back better? What can we do to ensure when that next roof comes on, that we build that roof better so that when those roofers clear the driveway, the premiums don't go skyrocketing because we have another hailstorm or water damage or whatever it is. So it'll give some ideas. It'll come back and it'll say, you know what we could do? Perhaps an insurance company could give a discount to its insurer and say, hey, you know, if you put a hail-resistant roof on, then we'll give you a 5% or 10%. I don't know. We'll have the experts do it to figure out what the best way is to think about how we move forward dealing with these really violent storms. There's no reason that we should lose insurance companies in this state. There's no reason we should lose insurance companies in this state because premiums spiral out of control because we're not thinking about this. So it just says, do a study, come back, tell us what we can propose to the insurance companies, tell us how we can make this better, tell us how we can limit the damage, tell us how we can ensure that insurance companies don't get up and walk out of the state of Maryland because of these premiums. So it costs up to $100,000. I think it's a very good use. CEF is an appropriate place for the money to come from.
Thank you. I'm glad that you were able to get that all off your chest, and we got obviously you're well versed.
Thank you. I
On the
appreciate
bill.
it.
We appreciate it.
I've been wanting to do that for a while, so thank you.
I can tell. I can tell you practiced. Thank you. So I will just make a comment that aside from the fiscal note that is now using words instead of numbers, I would like to say CEF is not the right place to do this because CEF is a fee on people who produce our energy. And when you take money out of that, you are driving up the cost of electricity. So if this well-meaning study was necessary, it should not come out of CEF. You should have found another source for it. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Could take the roll.
Madam Speaker.
To explain my vote, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the lady from Hartford, then the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. For the edification of the body, I have just read the bill carefully, and if I've missed something, please tell me. I don't see a single mention of Western Maryland or Allegheny County in here at all, or any county for that matter. There is an opportunity, however, where there could have been one if that was the actual goal of this bill, and that was what this bill was about. On page 2, line 1, it says a county emergency manager. That could have been the county that they had referenced that this bill was all about, but it's not, because that's not what it's about. It's about global warming research, not about any of the other things that were said, and those who are interested can read the bill. Please tell me where you see Western Maryland mentioned, even once.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, the floor leader did an excellent job of describing the bill, but it really is about climate change. That's all it is, and not a single person in here can define for me what climate change really is. Tornadoes, down. Flooding, down. Extreme weather, down. I know what you read tells you something different, but it's absolutely wrong. It's wrong, believe it. I'm telling you. To keep this, I'll tell you what this bill really does, in my opinion. It is looking for another reason to sue the Trump administration and say, look, because your EPA stopped this, we have more extreme weather and climate change, so you need to pay more. This is nonsense. For those reasons, I'm voting no. Thank you,
The clerk
Madam
would take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative and 34 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1219, having received a constitutional majority, is declared pass. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1439, real property, partition of property, liens, and purchase price adjustments.
House Bill number 1439 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1439, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Vote change. Recognizing the lady from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My
welcome.
finger was not working on House Bill 1097. I'd like to be recorded in the green.
Recognizing the delegate from Southern Maryland.
Madam Speaker, 1097 to green.
Recognizing the minority whip.
It's been a rough day. 582 to red. Thank you.
Anyone else? The lady from Prince George's.
Yes, my finger wasn't working because of my senator, but
I'm not even going to go there. Go ahead.
but I would like to change my vote for HB 130 to green, please.
All
I want
right.
to be recorded.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Yes, HB 191 to red, and my finger's tired.
The lady from Carroll County.
HB 132 green, please.
Anyone else for vote change? All right. House third reading calendar number 116. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
House Bill 1156, Calvert County Length of Service Award Program benefits.
House Bill number 1156 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative, House Bill number 1156, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1194, Correctional Officers Retirement System, Reemployment After Retirement, Exemption from Earnings Offset.
House Bill number 1194 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1194, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1425, Baltimore City Alcoholic Beverages Licenses, Revisions.
House Bill number 1425 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1425, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1428, Somerset County Board of Education, alterations.
House Bill number 1428 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative, House Bill number 1428, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1434, Maryland Department of Health Caregiver Resource Webpage Establishment.
House Bill number 1434 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the lady from Hartford County.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Could the floor leader just tell us what this bill does?
Floor leader? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you so much for the question. So what it does, it just requires the Department of Health to develop caregiver resource web pages for caregivers in the state. It just has to be posted online somewhere, and no fiscal impact. This is a pretty easy bill.
Okay, and can you just tell me what a caregiver is in this part of the code? Specifically, who does it address? Is it family members?
Yeah,
or-
family members, anybody that just
And
does
does this
any general
caregivers
caregiving. We don't change the definition within, we don't touch the definition with this.
Okay,
bill.
and so does this apply to anybody who's like in DDA or can you just give me a little bit? I'm just trying to understand who will be utilizing it.
Yeah, it's anybody that's is using MDH services.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 121 votes in the affirmative and 16 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1434, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Any vote change? Recognizing the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
HB 1059 to red and HB 1156 to green.
Anyone else? All right. The House, recognizing the gentleman from Prince George's.
Yes, Madam Speaker, my button did not work on 1194. I wish to vote green.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. House, actually, third reading, calendar 117. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 326, Education Maryland Center for School Safety Anonymous Reporting System.
House Bill number 326 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the delegate from Hartford County.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
This is a very interesting bill. See, it's not been amended at all. Could the floor leader explain to me what the impetus of this bill was and what the goal of it is exactly?
Yes, floor leader, the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The bill codifies existing practice that is already in place for an anonymous reporting system in the state of Maryland, which is governed by the Maryland Center for School Safety.
Okay. Okay, so they already do, all the counties do this already?
Yes.
Why do we need a bill?
To make sure it stays in place.
Huh.
Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right. I'm not totally sold, but okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. House Bill number 326. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative and 4 votes in the negative, House Bill number 326, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. House third reading, calendar number 118. The clerk will read the bill, please.
House Bill 1660, Mutual Insurance Holding Companies, Conversion to Mutual Insurers.
House Bill 1616 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1616, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk, actually, House third reading, calendar number 121. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 446, Health, Dementia Services and Brain Health Program and Provider Resource Toolkit.
House Bill number 446 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 446, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 658, Maryland Department of Health Forensic Review Boards and Community Forensic Aftercare Program.
House Bill number 658 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative and 36 votes in the negative, House Bill number 658, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 892, Business Regulation, Cemeteries, Actions for Sale, Transfer, or Alternate Use.
House Bill number 892 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 892, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 893, Business Regulation, Abandoned Cemeteries, Acquisition and Disposition.
House Bill number 893 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the lady from Hartford County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could
You're
the
welcome.
floor leader just tell us what this bill does
Floor
now?
leader. Recognizing the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As
You're
amended, House Bill 893 authorizes a governmental unit to bring a condemnation proceeding to acquire property on which an abandoned cemetery is located with the intent to transfer the property to certain individuals or organizations.
Okay, and what kind of individuals or organizations are going to be eligible? So would they buy it from the state now? How would that exactly work? The state would take control of it and then would put it up for sale? Or they could just transfer it without sale?
So it would be through a sale. It could be a veterans organization. It could be certain cultural organizations. It could be family members. It just really depends.
Okay, so a family member, somebody buried in the
people that
cemetery
are
would have the
buried there.
opportunity. Okay, could any nonprofit take over, like a community nonprofit that's not maybe directly related, but like a neighborhood
So
association?
certain nonprofits are listed in the bill.
Okay, but I didn't read through the whole thing. I'm so sorry with a reprint, but any nonprofit could potentially be eligible. It's not restricted to only a certain list of them, is it?
So, for example, it does list veterans organizations.
I'm sorry. Say it one more time. I couldn't hear you.
I said it does list veterans organizations.
Yes. Okay. I see that. Cultural affiliation is mentioned. Descendant community organization. I see that. Okay. A nonprofit organization. So that's just any nonprofit then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative, House Bill number 893, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1117, Virginia I. Jones Alzheimer's Disease and Related Dementias Council and the Advisory Stakeholder Group on Autism-Related Needs, Recommendations for Elopement Response.
House Bill 1117 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative and 0 vote in the negative, House Bill number 1117, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Any vote changes? All right. House third reading calendar number 122. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 989, State Assistance for the Elderly, Study on Calculation of Income.
House Bill number 989 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 118 votes in the affirmative and 18 votes in the negative, House Bill number 989, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1048, Public Health Chain Restaurants, Sodium and Added Sugars Warning Icons and Disclosure and Notice.
House Bill number 1048 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd
You're
like
welcome.
to just simply note that the Maryland Restaurant Association remains in opposition to the bill. And one of the main reasons, as we indicated earlier today, is that really no place in America outside of New York City, which is a very large place, bigger than our state, quite frankly, and the city of Philadelphia have implemented these types of regulations. What they found in multiple studies conducted in New York City about how does the icon, how does the additional information change consumer behavior, doesn't change it very much at all. Now, we cannot like that. We can say, gee, you know, someone should recognize that there's more sodium, there's more sugar in the product, they want to stay away from it. But people have freedom of choice. You know, people go into the supermarket and they eat a box of Ho-Hos when they go home at night. That's what a lot of people in Cecil County do, from what my former roommate seemed to indicate. At least a lot of people, you know, in the rear rows, they like Ho-Hos. And so they're allowed to eat them. It may not be good for them, but you can still do it. And what we found is, in studies conducted for this type of regulation, is it doesn't really accomplish anything except it costs people more money to implement. And I got news for you, for the 837th time you've heard this, businesses pass along the cost of business to the consumer. If it costs them more money to update their menus, if it costs them more money to deal with it, they don't eat it in their profit. They pass it along to your constituents in mind and how much money they pay to get that Big Mac or to get that extra size soda that we may all say, not a great idea, but we're not in charge of everyone with respect to how they eat and drink in chain restaurants. And for those reasons that I think the Restaurant Association articulated fully, I have to oppose the bill, although the gentle lady from Montgomery County who does these things, I know does them completely out of an abundance of good intentions to try to help people deal with nutritional issues and live better lives. But at the end of the day, people have choice. They're going to choose to probably do these things, and I think it won't have the effect, but will have the cost. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the chair of the subcommittee.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
So, you know, it's just good public policy that you let people know what they're eating. The minority leader is correct that the policy was put into place in 2016, I believe, in New York City. They did a study in 2017 looking at a year, and there wasn't great data, but the study that came back in 2025 looking at the 10 years or so prior to the introduction of the warning labels and the 5 years, 6 years after do show not only are people more aware of the salt content and thus more likely to make more healthy choices, but they're actually seeing a decrease in hypertension, which is what we're looking for. We're looking at the health outcomes. So it's still a little early. 2016 in New York. Philadelphia, I think, was 2022, or about then, much less time. So the data is still coming out, but there's certainly nothing wrong with giving people more information so they can make better health choices. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I
You're
tried
welcome.
to get up after the minority leader gets up, but I wanted just to give you a personal example. So I had a day off, thanks to the Madam Speaker for giving us a day off yesterday. And my youngest son...
I'm so generous.
You're very generous. My youngest son wanted to have a lad and dad, and he wanted to go to Roy Rogers. Obviously, they own more than 20 locations. And why I bring the story up is that he likes his Gold Rush plain. Nothing on it. No bacon, no honey sauce, whatever the hell that is. Heck, that is. But obviously, that is a different sandwich.
I hope he's not listening to that language.
He's 7, so he's not listening. But that sandwich is different than advertised. He also got a milkshake, and he didn't want the whipped cream on his milkshake, which would also be different. And I tell you this story because the Restaurant Association raised this issue. Like, you could have a sandwich, like a Big Mac, that has all these different ingredients. People do substitutions. So it's almost impossible to put out the appropriate sugar and sodium content on these things when they keep changing. And that's what I'm saying. It just seems very unworkable and very difficult. And so for those reasons, I'll be voting red. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
To explain my vote, Madam Speaker.
Yes, recognizing the lady from Hartford.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Not only would I like to back up what the minority whip just said, but there's applications already available on your phone to look this stuff up, and they're even better because you can put the substitutions in. Heck, you can ask ChatGPT. So, in honor of my beautiful lavender husbands from the left side of the room, I will be a blush red on this particular bill.
Recognizing the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to explain my vote on this bill, and I want to thank the Health Committee for working with me and the Restaurant Association on the amendments that were attached to it. So this amended bill includes all of the language that the Restaurant Association requested. It lowers the civil penalty, it changes the effective date, it narrows the scope to chain restaurants that actually already have this information per federal law, and it includes the QR code, which originally the restaurants didn't want anything added for fear that difference of their menu in one state across others would be too difficult to comply with. This bill does all that they asked for except for strike the original bill. And the original bill asks for icons to be on each of the menu items if, in fact, one item includes half or more of your daily value of sugar or salt. This is an important health policy, public health protection bill. And the reason is that it allows individuals to make informed dining choices. Now, while a QR code is wonderful in that it will directly direct individuals who have access to a smartphone to a specific part of someone's website, which sometimes can be hard to find on its own. The QR code is only accessible to people who have smartphones. Not everybody does, believe it or not. Also, many of these chain restaurants have drive-thrus. It is very, very difficult for an individual who is at a drive-thru to ask for a PDF copy of, or a printed copy of the full nutritional information in order to get access to the same information that an individual would get if there were just icons on there. So for those reasons, I support this bill and encourage my colleagues to vote green. Thank you.
The clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the affirmative and 36 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1048, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1351, Home Improvement Contractors Disaster Mitigation Services and Fraudulent Insurance Act, Regulation and Prohibition.
House Bill number 1351 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I'll just kind of reiterate what I said on second reader here. You know, I have deep concerns that we are establishing 24 different policies here. We give each county the ability to operate in their own way here. This is a statewide license that we are now going to have 24 potentially different policies. I don't think that that is a good practice. If you look inside of the article as well with respect to this, it's usually 3 days to cancel a contract. However, we're now saying that there can be 5 or 7. So we're creating a lot of confusion for contractors that operate inside of the same space here. So for all those reasons, I'm going to be voting red on this.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I asked my colleagues join me in voting green on House Bill 1351. Just to be clear, we pass enabling legislation every year in this chamber where we defer to the local jurisdictions to determine what works best for their localities. Here, this bill does just that. In regards to the actual licenses that the contractors are going to have, the MHIC license contracting system under the bill is the same one that we already have. Everybody's going to apply. Everyone's going to have the exact same laws about how to have that license and how it operates. The only thing in the bill that we're giving local jurisdictions to determine is how they would set up parameters for disaster areas. So in the event there's a fire, in the event there's a tornado and trees are down and homes are destructed, what this bill does is it allows local jurisdictions to figure out how do they want to rope off, how do they want to set up those parameters in those disaster areas so that they can make sure that everyone is safe and that no one is crossing those lines to solicit during the time of remediation, during the time of folks becoming more safe, getting the resources they need from the state. So at the end of the day, this bill only enables local jurisdictions to determine how they want to proceed on preparing spaces to ensure that during disasters, they're able to rope off and ensure those areas are safe from solicitation from contractors. So with that said, I'd ask the body to join me in voting green on this bill.
Recognizing the delegate from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I'll be voting red on this bill. I think we all want to cut down on storm chasers and people like that, but This bill looks like it sets up an impediment for people actually to provide mitigation for their homes. And if we wanted to actually like crack down on that, what you would do is maybe extend the statewide, 3 days rate of rescission from those contracts. Instead, what we're doing is just creating another license. It doesn't make any sense for what we're trying to accomplish here at all. So for all those reasons, I'll be voting red. Thank you.
The clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
To explain my vote.
Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I'm red on this bill because this case is actually being adjudicated in court right now. So this would be something that a future year legislature could take up, but not this one. Thank you.
The clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative and 37 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1351, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. So clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1376, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Maryland Children's Health Program, and Health Insurance transfers to special pediatric hospitals requirements.
House Bill number 1376 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative and 3 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1376, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Any vote change? Recognizing the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
Let's
welcome.
just go with that last one and HB 1376 to green.
Recognizing the lady from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
House
welcome.
Bill 1097 to green, please.
Any other vote changes? All right. House third reading calendar number 123. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
House Bill 698, State Board of Morticians and Funeral Directors Board Operations and Regulation of Crematories and Reduction Facilities.
House Bill number 698 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 698, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will be so kind and read the next bill, please.
House Bill 816, Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund, Affordability Program, and Industry Automobile Insurance Association Assessments.
House Bill number 816 is on third reading and final passage. Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So
You're
I
welcome.
remember this bill from last year, although I believe it had a different sponsor. But I will tell you, the information that I've gotten from different individuals have been somewhat conflicting. And the part that I'm most concerned with is I believe this would allow an assessment against Maryland insured drivers to increase the Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund, the MAFE Fund. And so, like I said, I've gotten conflicting information on it. I would hate to vote for something that would then add an additional fee on everyone who drives a vehicle that has insurance in our state. So for those reasons, I'll be voting red. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative and 38 votes in the negative, House Bill number 816, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1015, Developmental Disability Services, Expedited Eligibility Determinations for Recently Relocated Individuals, Ralph's Act.
House Bill number 1015 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1015, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1063, Natural Resources Hunting Management.
House Bill number 1063 is on third reading and final passage. Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I wanted to just take this opportunity to thank a lot of people for this particular legislation. Since I've been here since 2019 to date, we have had 67 bills alone about Sunday hunting. It's not a big deal to some people, but it's a bigger deal to someone else. For probably close to 300 years, we have said that folks cannot hunt on Sunday. And no, I am not a hunter. No, I don't own a gun, and I don't even like guns. But the question becomes, if we can have activities on Sundays, if we can gamble on Sundays, if we can dance and party on Sundays, the fundamental policy question is why not be able to hunt on Sundays? And most importantly, why not on one's own property? And so I thank so many people for, especially the Department of Natural Resources and Agriculture, for at least letting us have this discussion about something, a resource that they manage 6 days a week, that they do not manage through regulatory process 1 day a week. So I thank everyone for the conversation, and I thank everyone for the work to this date, which has been 10 months. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sorry to slow us down. I guess the gentlelady from Harford County is wearing off on me. I did just want to take a moment to lift up the subcommittee chair. She was busy thanking other people, but Madam Speaker, she does not represent a district with a lot of hunters, I would dare say. As she said, she herself doesn't hunt and doesn't care for hunting or firearms, so it would have been very easy for her not to get involved in this issue. But she chairs the Natural Resources Subcommittee, the position you put her in, Madam Speaker, and so she did the work as you would want her to do. She spent time in the interim, had lots of meetings with stakeholders, and ultimately compromised to get a finished product on the floor. So I just want to thank the subcommittee chair for her work on this issue and so many others. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And thank you for your work, and thank you for compromising on the floor, and for all the work that you have done. We appreciate it. The clerk will take the call. Actually, we'll call the roll. The clerk would take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative and 5 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1063, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House 1120, professional licensing portability, members of the Foreign Service and spouses.
House Bill number 1120 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1120, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1533, Public Health Cosmetic Products Enforcement and Units for Prohibited Ingredients, Crown and Care Act, protecting communities from harmful hair chemicals.
House Bill number 1533 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 108 votes in the affirmative and 28 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1533, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Vote changes. Recognizing the lady from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to be recorded in the nay on House Bill 1063.
Anyone else? Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Yeah, House Bill 1533 to nay.
Anyone else for vote changes? Recognizing the lady from Prince George's.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This is an old vote change, but it's from 1034. Vote yay, please. Hey, HB 1034, vote yay. Thank you.
Remember your yellow slips. Anyone else? All right. House third reading calendar number 124. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 336, Criminal Procedure, District Court, issuance of summons and arrest warrants.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to suspend the rules to allow this bill to have 2 readings on the same day.
The question before the House is to allow the bill to have 2 readings on the same day. What is he doing? Is he ready?
Did she say? Oh, Madam Speaker.
Okay, 1 second. The clerk will call the roll. Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There have been 129 votes. The rules are suspended. Is there any debate?
Yes,
Organizing Baltimore County.
Thank you. Could the floor leader rise and tell us what is the rush and what does the bill do?
So the bill is amended, creates a new procedure for the issuance of a criminal summons or arrest warrant by the district court based on an application for a statement of charges filed by an individual who is not a police officer or a state's attorney.
Was there opposition to the bill? Looks like there was.
Yes.
Were you able to work that out?
We were able to work out some of the issues that were raised, but not all.
So why are the Victims Resource Center unfavorable? Why is the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center opposed to this?
They're opposed to the bill because today, if an individual goes to a commissioner, the commissioner can issue an arrest warrant today.
And after this bill passes?
The commissioner would not be able to issue an arrest warrant.
So I'm not on your committee, so this is like treading in deep water here.
No problem.
So if a victim's abuser needs to be arrested today, they can be, and after this passes, they have a waiting period?
No. There's always...
Madam Speaker? I apologize, and thank you for your questions. However, because we're on the motion to suspend the rules, while the motion itself is debatable, and again...
I think we already did that. We're on 3rd reading.
Thank you very much. I was going to say...
No, I didn't. I wasn't debating that.
Thank you very much.
I sat down
I
and
apologize.
waited. Thank you. I do study the rule book as well. So please continue. Why would victims not like this?
Because today, victims have actually 2 avenues if they would like to report or make a claim. They could contact the police and file a report with the police, or they can file a report with the commissioner. Commissioner filing probable cause could issue an arrest warrant. The challenge that we have is that, and I'll just use numbers from Baltimore City as an example. There were approximately 1,400 warrants issued in Baltimore City in 2025. Of that, 1,174 were not prosecuted or dismissed. And so we're looking...
300 were, roughly.
Approximately 300. Now, today, that individual who comes in and feels that they're in danger can go to the police. They can come to the commissioner, and the commissioner can still issue a summons. The commissioner can also forward that summons information to the state's attorney for their review. The state's attorney would have 72 hours to do that review, and they could then say, no, a warrant should be issued, and recommend that, and then the judge could issue the warrant.
So where were the state's attorneys on this?
This is a bill that came from the state's attorneys.
So the state's attorneys are in favor of this?
Yes.
As amended?
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Can I send the gentleman from Southern Maryland?
I'm going to get it right this time. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor leader, please yield for some questions.
Absolutely.
And so you stated that if an individual has an issue, this bill would not preclude them from going to the police station, correct?
That is correct.
However, if currently, under current law, when we leave here, I could go out right now to the commissioner and take out a warrant for, let's say, attempt murder against you, correct?
That is correct.
And with no investigation, because the commissioner doesn't do investigation, do they?
They do not. They look at the 4 corners of the document that they have in front of them.
Right, and they don't call the police either, do they?
They do not.
And so, and if you were traveling, let's say in Arkansas or wherever you're from, joking, but if you were traveling and you were trying and you got pulled over in Arkansas, what would happen to you if you had this arrest warrant?
If you have the arrest warrant, they're going to arrest you. They're going to put you in jail in Arkansas, and at some point they're going to then extradite you back to Maryland.
And that's a roughly sometimes 45-day process, isn't it?
That's correct.
And so this doesn't preclude victims from actually getting justice. It just requires them, if they want immediate justice, if they want something done immediately, to reach out to law enforcement, correct?
That is absolutely
To do the
correct.
investigation while the evidence is actually still, for all intents and purposes, warm, correct?
That's correct.
And otherwise, what it also seems to do is it still allows them recourse if they choose not to use police officers, but it just is a summons, correct?
That is correct. It is a summons.
Which means if you're driving and you get pulled over a summons, you won't get arrested for a summons, will you?
You will not get arrested for the summons if you've not, well, let me just say this, because let's be clear. So if I have a summons and I don't appear for the court date, then I still potentially could be arrested for a failure to appear.
And even for that, they have to effectuate service and prove that you actually serve.
That is correct. So at least there is a process as opposed to someone being picked up, arrested, without ever having an opportunity to state their case.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the delegate from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't have any questions. I really appreciate you, Subcommittee Chair, and the work that you guys have done, the committee's done. However, this bill will absolutely protect some domestic abusers, and I'm going to tell you a story to illustrate why I will be red on this bill. There is a woman who I know who had been abused for many years, and she finally called the police one day. She finally called the police, and she hoped that this would be the last time that he dragged her by her hair down the hallway in front of her children, but it wouldn't be, because when the officer showed up, it was her husband's friend from high school. So it wouldn't be the last time he did that. And do you think that that woman is going to call the police the next time? No, she's not. She's not going to call the police the next time. Without this bill, this process is really her only avenue for remedy. This bill is a domestic abuser protection bill for the same type of domestic abusers that have political connectedness or police protectedness, all the ones that this body consistently wrings their hands about. This method of getting someone who is a danger, because you can't just arrest anybody, they have to be able to prove to the commissioner that there is a clear and present danger to themselves. This bill removes that avenue for the very woman that I am speaking of, because she is not going to call the police again after what happened the last time. So for all of that story and those reasons, I will be very, very crimson red on this bill.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I do, with all due respect, I do appreciate what you said, what the woman from Hartford County said. I just want to explain just a couple of reasons why I am going to be green on this vote. One, as I've mentioned many times, one thing that we have to do in judiciary is a balance of issues. And in this case, what the committee heard was that there was an imbalance. And that imbalance, unfortunately, resulted in many people being accused of and hauled into and arrested for something that might have been retaliation or something that was done in a vindictive type of manner. So we had to balance that. And with respect to the victims or the complainants, what happens here is we're still giving individuals the ability to file a complaint. However, what that complaint would issue, what would be issued is a summons by the district court commissioner, and that summons gets to be reviewed by the state's attorney. And then if that summons is inadequate, and if an arrest warrant needs to be issued, that state's attorney can file a motion to have that summons vacated and that an arrest warrant be issued. So that is actually the remedy and the balance that we have struck with this. So I want to let you all know that while the victim Victim Rights Center and all the other folks who came in through on a domestic violence or any type of violence argument, while they are not going to be doing cartwheels in the park, they are not in the position where they are opposing the bill. They would like for us as a body to come back and to continue to study and work on this issue. This is not an issue that gets resolved quickly or within our parameters that we have in session of 2026. So this is a balance, and the reason why we want to make sure that we listen to both sides, as we always have to do in judiciary. This is the work product of the committee. This is a bipartisan work product. It is going to be improved through a work group that will study this issue more, and we will continue to address this issue because it is not an easy issue. It has tons of complexity, and I'm very proud of the committee and the work product that we have put forward to you today. Thank you, Madam
The
Speaker.
clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker,
Recognizing the lady from Prince George's.
to explain my vote, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I'm proud to vote green on this bill today because there are lots of victims who are falsely accused, have lost their security clearances, have had their whole way of life uprooted because someone went to a commissioner and a commissioner issued an arrest warrant for these people, and they can never take that back. This bill strikes the right balance by allowing you to still go to the police, you can still get a summons, and the law enforcement officers are open 24 hours a day. They're always accessible, and so this bill will protect people, but there are victims who are actually being wrongfully accused, whose lives are being destroyed and ruined, and I'm voting green for them.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've been up here this is my 16th year, and people that know me, I've always fought for victims' rights. And I stand as a green on this today because I just got done representing a lady who was charged with attempted murder, and that was not founded because he was able to go to the commissioner. Another gentleman who was actually arrested in Arkansas because it was an alleged domestic violence issue, and it took 45 days to get him back. He's lost his job. Both of them have lost custody of their children. They've lost their place to live. They're still suffering because there was zero investigation done on these very serious allegations. These are felonious. These are felonies. And yes, you might be able to get them expunged from your record, but you can't get that job back. And it's really hard to unwrite that title or that headline of murder, attempted murder, rape, with zero investigation. So they never get to walk away from these charges that were wholly unfounded. So I'm very proudly going green on this.
The clerk will take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative and 13 votes in the negative, House Bill number 336, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Any vote change? Vote change, recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you. 989T, yes.
Any other vote changes? Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
1428 to red.
Anyone else? All right, remember to turn in your yellow slip. House third reading number 120. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 571, nonprofit housing corporations, taxes and special assessments, exemptions, alterations.
House Bill number 571 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative and 35 votes in the negative, House Bill number 571, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 883, consumer protection, artificial intelligence, behavioral health care prohibitions.
House Bill number 883 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 108 votes in the affirmative and 25 votes in the negative, House Bill number 883, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Vote change? Okay, all right. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1362, condominiums and homeowners associations, meetings, recording requirements.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, recognizing the delegate from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am thoroughly confused here, Madam Speaker. I'm confused because, Madam Speaker, it is not normal for a member of the back row caucus to be putting in legislation like this. So I'm going to need to ask the member of the back row caucus, if the floor leader would yield for a question, Madam Speaker, I certainly would appreciate it.
Okay, let me just do this reading right here. House Bill number 1362 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the floor leader, the sponsor from Western Maryland.
The answer is no.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Floor Leader, I'm so glad that you are sponsoring such legislation. I'm assuming, Mr. Floor Leader, that you are putting this legislation in because you have spent the prior 6 years in the Housing and Rural Property Subcommittee, and you have learned so much about this topic. Is that correct, Mr. Floor Leader?
That is so correct. You're
it's
right.
6 years you spent in the Housing and Rural Property Subcommittee. I am impressed with your knowledge in obtaining all this knowledge, sir. Is this a good bill?
This looks like legislation of someone else that I know that would have sponsored it, but I beat him to the punch.
Oh, I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to suggest that because of his 6 years of being educated, we all should vote green on this bill. Vote green, 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 green. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Hartford County.
Again, I'm going to deprive the body of another inspirational speech because of the late hour. I just want to say this is a good bill. It does good things for good people. Vote green.
All right, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
The clerk will, has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. All right, let's take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1362, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1529, Baltimore County Local Commission on Common Ownership Communities.
House Bill number 1529 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 108 votes in the affirmative and 24 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1529, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Any vote changes? Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. After talking to my state's attorney, I'm going to be supporting House Bill 336.
All right. Recognizing the gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 1533, from yay to nay.
Recognizing anyone else for vote change? The gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Yes, I'd like to change 571 from nay to yay, please.
Recognizing the gentleman from Western Maryland.
571 to nay and 863 to yay. I'm sorry, 883.
Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 336 to green.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was in the green for 883.
Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
336 to green.
Anyone else? Oh, Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
336, I'd like to be recorded in the green, please.
Anyone else for vote changes? Remember to turn in your yellow slips. House third reading calendar number 119. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 994, Business Regulation, Travel Services, Special Fund, Fees, and Surety Requirement. Don't you worry Act.
House Bill number 994 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I may be biased, but I think this is a really good bill. And I encourage everybody to vote green on it. But let me tell you how we got here. In 2024, about 1,200 people across the country went to Saudi Arabia for a pilgrimage to Hajj. 20 Marylanders in particular, 3 from my district, ended up passing. They did everything right. They bought their tickets, they went to what they believed was a trusted travel agency, and they ended up dying on the trip. It is so unfortunate for the Worry family and for the 1,200 other people who passed on this trip. What Maryland is trying to do with this bill, what other states have done with this bill, is we're trying to put together a registry that says if you are a travel agent, you're going to register with the state, you're going to show proper insurance, and you're going to pay a fee to make sure that you're updating that registry every single year. Other states do this. Maryland is trying to follow suit. And so this bill, my green vote today, is going to be for the Worry family, for so many families who have suffered by fly-by-night travel agencies, and I hope folks join me on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the call. There being 106 votes in the affirmative and 27 votes in the negative, House Bill number 994, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1155, Calvert County Procurement Long-Term Contracts for Infrastructure and Asset Management.
House Bill number 1155 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone wish to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, no votes in the negative, House Bill 1155, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1158, Calvert County Contracts for Infrastructure or Asset Management, Contract Duration.
House Bill 1158 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 131 votes in the affirmative, no votes in the negative, House Bill 1158, having a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will call the next bill.
House Bill 1166, Motor Vehicles Dealers Front Registration Plate Display.
House Bill 1166 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 95 votes in the affirmative and 36 in the negative, House Bill 1166, having received a constitutional majority, is declared
Mr. Speaker.
passed.
Mr.
Vote
Speaker.
changes. Gentleman from Baltimore County.
House Bill 994 to nay.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Mr. Speaker, my button didn't work. I'd like to be recorded in the red on 1166.
All right. Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1097, nay to yay.
Gentleman from Western Maryland.
1097, yay to nay. I'm sorry, nay to yay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Message from the Senate, consent calendar number 25, Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the first bill in the committee assignment.
Senate Bill 130, Senator Henson, Environment and Transportation.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So much be considered the reading of Senate Bill 130 be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
Hearing no objections, the bills are read for the first time and referred to the appropriate committees. That ends the work at the desk. Delegation announcements. Caucus announcements.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Caucus announcements. The Republican caucus.
Mr. Speaker, the Republican caucus will meet at 10:15 tomorrow morning in room 145.
All right. Women's caucus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, not knowing how long we might go to this evening, the Women's Caucus has provided sandwiches and dinner. It's in the back room. Enjoy.
LGBTQ caucus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With thanks to the Democratic Caucus Chair, especially for not having our caucus meeting in the morning, the LGBTQ plus caucus has heard your concerns about meeting at 8 a.m., and tomorrow we'll be meeting at 9 a.m. Yay! So please feel free to make sure you're signed on virtually for the call. We have the Maryland Department of Health Secretary on the call, and we look forward to seeing everybody virtually at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any other caucus announcements? We have a Women's History Moment. The delegate from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During Women's History Month, I rise to honor a Maryland trailblazer whose life's work still shapes our state today. Senator Gloria Gary Lala. Gloria Lala began not in a boardroom, but in a classroom, spending more than 30 years as a D.C. public school teacher. She saw up close what happens when kids go without resources, when families are stretched to the breaking point, and when government forgets the people it is supposed to serve. Instead of accepting that as the natural order of things, she decided to do something about it. In 1987, she was elected to the Maryland House of Delegates, and just 4 years later, she became the first woman ever elected to the Maryland Senate from Prince George's County in District 26. In a chamber where women, and black women in particular, were too often the exception, Gloria Lala was not just present, she was powerful. She proved that leadership doesn't ask permission, it simply steps forward. As a senator, she helped move big things that many Marylanders now take for granted. She was a key voice in the development of National Harbor and the Woodrow Wilson Bridge project, in extending the Green Line Metro to Branch Avenue, in building a new Oxon Hill High School, and in advancing casino legislation that would eventually bring MGM to Prince George's County. Those aren't abstract line items. They are jobs, tax revenue, transportation access, and opportunity for family who had been overlooked for too long. But Senator Lala's service didn't end in this legislature, sorry. In 2007, she became Maryland Secretary of Aging, the first black woman to hold that position. There, she focused on aging in place, on improving care for seniors, and on the growing challenges of Alzheimer's and dementia. She reminded this state that our elders are not a budget problem to be managed. They are a treasure to be honored and protected. Gloria Lala also understood that breaking a barrier is not enough if you don't hold the door for others. She mentored women candidates and helped build the 1,000 Maryland Women PAC to recruit, train, and support women seeking office. She refused to be satisfied with being the first. She wanted to make sure she was never the last. Today, many of us serve in a Maryland where it is more normal to see women and women of color at the dais, at the witness table, and in positions of leadership. That did not happen by accident. It happened because leaders like Gloria Lawler were willing to fight the long fights, endure the lonely rooms, and still keep their hand extended to the next generation. During this Women's History Month, as we celebrate the past and chart the future, let us remember Senator Gloria Lawler, teacher, legislator, cabinet secretary, mentor, and also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. May we honor her in her, not only in her AKA-ness, and not only with our words, but by living up to the standard she set, to see the people others overlook, to take on the hard fights, and to make sure that when we walk through a door, we leave it open behind us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Personal or guest announcements. Delegate from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I ask that you join me in welcoming two guests. The first is Bishop Ebony Kirkland, who is a nationally recognized entrepreneur and faith leader, founder and CEO of Ebony Marketing Research, serving Fortune 500 clients like Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, and Verizon. A proud Afro-Latina, she is the founder and presiding bishop of the Church of Living God International, leading a global ministry across Central and South America. Joining her is Dr. Denise Mitchum, a globally respected social impact strategist and advisor for Fortune 100 CEOs and world leaders. As founder of a well-connected global leader and president of the Alumni iNetwork for Harvard Women Georgia chapter, she works at the intersection of corporate, government, and community leadership to drive meaningful change. Mr. Speaker, permission to use the delegate's name.
So ordered.
Thank you. With our colleague, Diana Fennell, these extraordinary women are sisters from another mister. I ask you to join us in welcoming them. Thank you.
Delegate from Howard and Montgomery.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to introduce the doctor of the day from beautiful District 9A. He is Dr. Sunny Goel, an ophthalmologist and LASIK eye surgeon, and he's here with Russell Caldron, a med student from Johns Hopkins. Thank you.
Any other delegate from the Eastern Shore?
House Bill 1097 to Green.
Delegate from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request permission to use the delegate's name.
Granted.
On behalf of Delegates Bartlett, Chang, and myself, we'd like to welcome everyone to District 32 night tonight when we get out of here. In the House building, room 170.
Cheers, a great night. Delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to announce, colleagues, that the Baby of the Year, Bart Harvey Jarvis, will be on display in the rotunda immediately after the floor session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, it's really time to go. Delegate from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you,
quickly.
Mr. Speaker. Very quickly, keeping in the theme of women taking care of the chamber, I just wanted to announce that on tomorrow, our Women in Government, which is a bipartisan organization nationwide, and I'm the chair of it, but we do have members in the chamber as well that are members, and they are, can I permission to use the delegates' names?
Granted.
Delegates Chi, Woods, Miller, and Congola. We're inviting all the women legislators to join us tomorrow for lunch in room 170 for the Women in Government luncheon for women legislators. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. Any other personal or guest announcements? Seeing none. Quorum call.
Mr. Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 131 members present, the House is still in session. Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House stands recessed until Tuesday, March 24th at 11 o'clock a.m. Legislative date, March 11th.
11 in the morning tomorrow.